Hi, I'm Gary. In this Throwback Thursday, I'm going to do a pond video. I'm not talking about these ponds here. I'm talking about the pond that inspired me to put in more ponds. I started a video back in October last year, 2018. I got busy, I never got back to it, and I didn't complete it and put it up on YouTube. So I'm going to show that footage first, and then I'll come back and I'll talk about what happened in the past couple of months since I filmed that video. Hi, I'm Gary. My wife Robbie and I live in Southern California. We're in Sunset Zone 23, USDA Zone 10A. And I thought that it's coming towards the end of pond season, so I might just do a garden tour of my pond. My Canna Edulis has started to flower. It's been setting some seeds. I planted this about 3 months ago. Some of my other plants are going to die back and disappear, but I think this will continue on for a while. I'm very happy with what I've done so far with this. I started it from seeds that I got. I may put a link down below where I got the seeds from. A lot of my other plants here are going to die back. The canna will die back for a short period of time, but then it will eventually sort of come back to life. My Taro is doing really well. This year I've got some nice large leaves. Last year I got leaves about this size when I was growing it amongst my sweet potatoes. My pond is basically set up in a raised bed. The raised bed is made out of cinder blocks. It measures approximately 9 feet by 9 feet. So the pond really is just something inside a raised bed. It's very simple, doesn't take a lot of maintenance, and basically to maintain it, I just use a pair of scissors. I might trim off some of the old leaves, toss it under my bananas, and with the water plants, I get some hair algae growing. Again, I just toss it over. Every part of my pond I can reach from the edge, so I wanted to make it as maintenance free as I can. I have a lot of sweet potatoes growing. Now some of my sweet potatoes came up from the soil that I put in my raised bed. Now these sweet potatoes here I believe are purple. I have two leaf types. I've got a shield leaf and I've also got an oak leaf on the other side. The roots have actually set in the water. So what I might do next year is allow the sweet potatoes to grow into the pond, and then I can take some stem cuttings. They've set root at the leaf nodes. The leaves under the water are kind of looking a little bit chewed up from the pond snails. This one's yellowing, so that can go as compost. There's another species of Ipomoea that they grow as a water plant, and that's Kangkong. You can get that from some of the specialty Asian grocery stores. I've seen that sold in a few places. But why would I grow that if I can grow sweet potatoes and get a similar result? You can eat the leaves of the sweet potatoes. Sweet potato leaves you can use as a substitute for spinach, and we can't grow spinach here, so these you cook up just like you would cook up spinach, and they've got a very mild flavour. You can also eat it raw. The sweet potatoes that are growing on this side of the pond came up from the soil that I planted here. I'm not sure if they came up from seed, because some of my sweet potatoes flower and do produce seed. I have grown sweet potatoes by seed before. Most likely a small piece was left behind, and this occurs fairly frequently when you're harvesting sweet potatoes, especially here where we can grow it as a perennial. You'll end up leaving pieces behind and it'll sprout and you'll grow more back. So hopefully this came from a sprouted piece. This will be a purple variety. It's actually one of my favourite purple varieties, if that's what it is, because I know the bed that it came out of is over there. My turmeric did really well this year. It's starting to yellow around the pond, so it will be dying back pretty soon. It grew a lot better around the pond with the extra humidity the pond provided it than it did amongst my sweet potatoes. I still grew some amongst my sweet potatoes, but next year I'm going to plant some more and maybe have a few more ponds set up. So it did really well here. My ginger did not do as well. I started it a little later and it came up, it started to sprout, but next year hopefully it'll do better. This ginger on this side did better than the ginger on the other side. I think it got a little bit more sun. The ginger on the other side got shaded out by the turmeric. So I think I'll plant more ginger over this side next year. I made some predictions back in October 2018 as to what was going to go dormant and some of the plants that didn't go dormant. One of them was my Canna Edulis. The flowering cannas that I've kept in the past usually go dormant, but this particular variety or species did not. It continued to flower all through winter. At times there weren't any pollinators around to pollinate it, so it didn't produce seed, so the flowers just dropped off. I did produce quite a few seed pods, and I'm going to plant those again this coming spring, and I want to get a lot of these plants growing. The hummingbirds really love this plant. So this didn't go dormant, it's doing well. This is the red form. My two yellow forms, this one started to flower, it did not set seed. I've got quite a bit of dill that's come up around my pond or my raised bed. Over here my ginger fairly recently went dormant, so it's still got a little bit of growth left on it. I'm going to plant more ginger down here this year. So this piece is doing well, the part that's still in the ground. My small taro, a few years ago, I planted over in my sweet potato bed. Now that I've moved it around my raised bed, it's doing really well. It didn't really go dormant. Some of the leaves started to turn yellow. It's got a lot of corms underground and it's just starting to grow again. So this has been a really good environment for the small taro. I'm going to plant more around my other ponds. Not really into design, but I wanted a small plant just to set the right scale because this is a small pond. So I've got small taro and plants that are around here are fairly small. I planted my turmeric in these floral tubs, and that's allowed me to come back and find them. They still have some of the last year's leaves. The turmeric that I'm growing here is the normal turmeric. I do have yellow turmeric that I'm going to replant, yellow or white turmeric. I lost that last year. I couldn't find it. I left it growing in the sweet potatoes, and I think the ground got a little too wet. A lot of plants like this will do okay in cool clay or cool soil, but they don't like cool wet soil. So I think it just got too wet. In the raised beds, they've done really well, and I've left the tubers or the corms under the soil, and none of them have rotted. So this has got a good amount of drainage. So as I've said in the past, my ponds are really set up to control the environment around my raised beds. Along here I've planted garlic and onions. I figured that since the turmeric has gone dormant, I may as well just start planting a few other plants. The dill has self-sown in a lot of places. I'm going to let that go to flower. The green fruit beetle, or the fig-eating beetle, prefer to eat pollen over fruit. They like to feed on flowers that have a flat surface It's kind of like a helicopter landing platform. So the dill is something that they really do like. They also like celery. I haven't planted any celery yet. I still have some growing that's a couple of years old in the rest of my garden. But around my new ponds I may put some celery as well. My pond looks a little shabby right now. Over winter a lot of things died back. I don't have a lot of edible plants in my pond. I have some dropwort that I got from the Korean grocery store. And I've got some Sagittaria. The Sagittaria is something that I only recently found out was edible. I wasn't sure if all species were edible. I'm not sure what this species is, but I believe it's sold as an aquarium plant. As time goes on, I'll figure out more edible plants that I can plant in the actual pond. I've got a number of non-edible plants. They're mainly in the small pond at the top. This one here is water lettuce. It's got an unfortunate name. It's not edible. If you ate this, you'll have a bad day. I've got some more edible dropwort here. This is the one that I got from eBay. It's a different variety than the other one. The leaf's a little different and it's got a different flavour to it. I do have some duckweed growing in here as well. I'm not really sure if I'm going to keep these or not. I've taken them out of the main pond. I'll probably clean this up and put some more edible plants in the small top pond. The sweet potatoes that grew across the pond over summer, they died back. The parts that touched the water rotted away and fell to the bottom of the pond. During the growing season, the leaves under the water were doing quite well. It was like they were acting as an aquatic plant. When the weather cooled down, all that was left was the ones that are above the water and the ones that are primarily on the ground. They set roots in the water, but they did not produce any tubers under the water. The leaves functioned like any other water plant. They seemed to be able to photosynthesize, and that was kind of an interesting thing to see. The solar pumps are still working well. The solar panels are mounted on these posts. As the sun moves across the sky, it gets shaded from time to time, so it switches on and off as the day goes on. I've had them set up for about 6 months. I set my pond up purposely in the raised bed, so all I have to do is take a piece of garden hose and siphon the water out. It'll just drain into the rest of my garden. I still have some dragonfly larvae or nymphs in my live bearer fish basket. You would put guppies in there to give birth, and that would protect them from the other fish. When the dragonflies laid eggs, some of the eggs landed in the basket and they survived. I think the fish may have eaten anything else that got into the main pond. So I'm going to experiment with my new ponds and see if I can get some dragonflies breeding here. I just think it'll be cool. In permaculture, the term food forest is used a lot. In this instance, I'm going to refer to this as my food wetland. Over the next 12 months, I hope to get more plants going and get more ponds set up. I want to learn about edible plants that are capable of growing in or around a pond. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you do, please give it a thumbs up. If you'd like to subscribe to our channel, feel free to subscribe to our channel. With that, thanks for watching, and don't forget to eat what you grow.